There is a mountain south of Tehran that the Pentagon has been photographing from space almost every single day for the last several weeks. Not because of what they can see, but because of what they can't. Somewhere underneath hundreds of meters of solid granite, Iran has been digging 2 tunnel complexes, buried so deep that America's most advanced satellites can barely confirm what's happening inside, let alone what's being built there. The site has a code name that sounds almost too dramatic to be real: Pickaxe Mountain. And a few days ago, the President of the United States looked into a camera and said, "We're going to take out Pickaxe Mountain. Tell the Iranians to be ready." Now stick with me here, because this isn't posturing. This is a country that has already watched the United States drop the most powerful non-nuclear bombs in its entire arsenal on 3 of its most protected nuclear sites in a single night. And what happened after that first strike is exactly why Pickaxe Mountain matters so much right now. Because depending on who you ask, that earlier campaign either ended Iran's nuclear ambitions for a generation, or it barely slowed them down at all. And nobody, not the generals, not the intelligence agencies, not even the people standing on that mountain right now, seems totally sure which version is true. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what a bunker buster bomb actually does, why the United States has now used them on at least 4 separate occasions against Iran in barely over a year, and why intelligence officials are quietly worried that the next target might be the one bomb designed specifically to fail against. Let's start with the basics, because most people online throw around the phrase bunker buster without actually understanding what makes this weapon so uniquely terrifying to a country like Iran. A bunker buster isn't just a bigger bomb, it's an entirely different kind of weapon, built around a simple, brutal idea. Instead of exploding on impact like a normal bomb, it's designed to survive the impact. The casing is forged from a hardened steel alloy specifically so it can punch through layers of rock, concrete, and reinforced earth without breaking apart, and only detonates once it's buried deep inside the target, turning the explosion into something closer to an underground earthquake than a surface blast. The largest version in the American arsenal is the GBU-57, sometimes nicknamed the mother of all conventional bombs. It weighs around 30,000 pounds, and it can only be carried by one aircraft in the entire world, the B-2 stealth bomber. That's the weapon that made history in the summer of 2025, when American B-2 pilots flew a covert, roughly 18-hour round-trip mission from the continental United States and dropped 14 of these bombs on 3 of Iran's most fortified nuclear facilities: Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, all buried deep inside mountains specifically to survive an attack like this one. Trump went public almost immediately, calling the strikes a total and complete obliteration of Iran's nuclear program. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, told French radio afterward that the centrifuges at Fordo were no longer operational. On paper, that sounds like the end of the story, except it wasn't. And here's the part that I think deserves way more attention than it's actually gotten. A preliminary assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency, which leaked to the press not long after the strikes, reached a very different, much lower confidence conclusion. It suggested Iran had already moved a significant portion of its enriched uranium stockpile before the bombs ever landed, and that the underground facilities themselves hadn't actually collapsed the way the White House was implying. Instead of erasing Iran's nuclear program, the assessment suggested the strikes may have only set it back by a matter of months. The Trump administration pushed back hard, calling the leak a political attack rather than an honest intelligence judgment. But think about what that disagreement actually means in practice. You have the most powerful bunker buster bomb ever built, dropped 14 times on the most protected nuclear sites on the planet, and even the people inside the American government can't fully agree on whether it actually worked. That's not a footnote. That's the entire reason Pickaxe Mountain is such a big deal right now, because if the last set of bunker busters didn't fully finish the job, everyone from Washington to Tehran has to assume Iran spent the following months quietly building something new, somewhere deeper, somewhere harder to reach. And that's precisely what American intelligence believes Pickaxe Mountain actually is. So here's the rehook, because I promised you this story gets stranger the deeper you go, and this is where it does. After that historic 2025 strike, most people assumed the nuclear chapter of this conflict was basically closed. It wasn't even close. In February of 2026, a fresh wave of fighting broke out between the United States, Israel, and Iran, and it has been escalating in waves ever since, month after month, strike after strike. In March, American bombers hit an Iranian ammunition depot in Isfahan with 2,000-pound bunker busters. Footage that Trump personally posted to social media showing fireballs ripping through a facility that officials believed was being used to store enriched uranium. That same month, the U.S. military used 5,000-pound penetrator weapons, technically called GBU-72s, to blast open underground Iranian storage sites near the Strait of Hormuz that were holding coastal defense cruise missiles, weapons capable of threatening the single most important oil shipping lane on the planet. Then in June, during a chaotic operation to rescue a downed American pilot and navigator inside Iranian territory, the commander of U.S. Central Command made the call to send two B-2 bombers, the same aircraft from the 2025 mission, to drop GBU-57 bunker busters on an underground headquarters belonging to Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, just outside Tehran. A senior military official put it about as bluntly as you'll ever hear a Pentagon source talk to a reporter, saying, quote, "We brought hellfire down on them." According to Fox News reporting, that underground headquarters was destroyed. That's 4 confirmed uses of bunker buster weapons against Iran inside about 13 months. Not one dramatic one-off strike that ends a war in the movies, but a recurring, escalating pattern, hitting deeper and more heavily fortified targets nearly every single time. And that pattern is exactly what leads us back to where we started, standing outside Pickaxe Mountain. What makes this specific site so different from everything that came before it isn't just its size, it's the geology. According to American intelligence assessments cited by Al Jazeera, the facility has been carved directly into the mountain, positioned beneath hundreds of meters of solid granite bedrock, specifically engineered to be too deep and too hardened for even the most powerful bunker busters in the American arsenal to guarantee a kill. Iran has publicly maintained, ever since construction began back in 2020, that the site is intended purely for assembling and manufacturing advanced centrifuges, nothing more. But American intelligence agencies, according to reporting from Al Monitor, suspect Tehran may actually be building an undeclared uranium enrichment facility there, a kind of insurance policy buried so deep that even a repeat of the 2025 strike might not be enough to finish it off. Trump has continued needling the site publicly, telling reporters, quote, "Every time we hear about it, we blow it up," while also admitting American surveillance currently sees no major activity there, at least none they're willing to describe publicly. That combination, a known target, the U.S. isn't sure it can actually destroy, sitting inside a country the U.S. is already bombing on a near-nightly basis, is about as dangerous a combination as modern warfare produces. And that near-nightly bombing part isn't an exaggeration for effect. As of this week, American strikes on Iran have now continued for 7 consecutive nights, hitting coastal defense systems, missile and drone sites, and naval infrastructure across multiple regions of the country, according to U.S. Central Command's own statements. Iranian state media has reported explosions across the islands of Kish, Keshem, and Abu Musa, along with the port city of Bandar Abbas, while a naval blockade the U.S. reimposed on Iranian ports has already resulted in American forces disabling a tanker attempting to reach Karg Island, Iran's most important oil export hub, by firing Hellfire missiles directly into its smokestack, rather than sinking it outright. Oil markets have felt every bit of this escalation. Crude prices spiked more than 40% above $100 a barrel at the peak of this renewed conflict. And even after cooling off slightly, a fresh round of strikes pushed prices back up nearly 10% in a single day earlier this month, according to CNN's market reporting, the kind of single-day jump that hasn't happened since the early days of this specific war. And just this week, the human cost of this conflict became impossible to ignore for American families specifically, after Iranian-linked forces killed 2 U.S. service members stationed in Jordan, a moment Trump publicly mourned, and one that fundamentally changes the political calculation inside Washington about just how much further this entire campaign is willing to go. So where does all of this actually leave us? Here's my honest read, and I want to be clear, this next part is analysis, not confirmed fact. Bunker buster bombs have become the single clearest signal of exactly how seriously the United States takes a specific Iranian target. You don't spend 30,000-pound, purpose-built, mountain-piercing weapons on facilities that don't genuinely worry you. Every time one of these bombs gets used, it's the Pentagon telling you, without saying it directly, that this particular site was considered a real active threat, not just a symbolic one. The problem is that bunker busters have a hard physical limit, and Pickaxe Mountain appears to be testing exactly where that limit sits. If a facility is buried deep enough, hardened enough, positioned inside enough solid rock, there's a real possibility that even America's most advanced conventional weapon isn't capable of guaranteeing total destruction in a single strike, which raises an uncomfortable question that nobody in Washington seems eager to answer publicly. What happens if the bombs simply aren't enough this time? Does that mean repeated strikes, mission after mission, chipping away at the same mountain for months? Does it mean a return to the seizure and ground operation conversations that have already been floated elsewhere in this conflict? Or does it mean this specific site just keeps sitting there as an open, unresolved threat? Exactly like Pickaxe Mountain is sitting there right now, while the rest of this war continues escalating around it night after night. I think the honest answer is that nobody fully knows yet, including the people making these decisions in real time. And that uncertainty is genuinely the most important thing to understand about where this conflict stands today. If you want to actually understand this war, instead of just reacting to whatever clip goes viral this week, this is exactly the kind of story worth following closely. Because the next bunker buster strike might not just be another headline. It might be the moment that answers the question this entire video has been building toward. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because the second Pickaxe Mountain gets hit, I'll have the full breakdown up within hours, not days. And if this video actually helped you understand what's really happening over there, drop a comment and let me know which target you think gets hit next, because I read every single one, and I want to know if you're seeing this the same way I am.